Today will conclude the hearings on challenges to designating petitions for state and local offices as well as party positions to be contested in the September 9th, 2014 primary election, as well as all opportunity to ballot petition challenges for the same primary election. I now ask that each commissioner and staff member present identify him or herself for the record, starting with my left.
Ron Castorino, Richmond County Republican.
Michael Rendino, Dean Bronx County Republican.
Simon Schuler, Kings Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Michael Michelle, Queens Republican.
Julie Dent, Brooklyn Democrat. Welcome, everyone.
Marie Costello, Richmond Democrat.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Dawn Santel, Deputy Executive Director.
Pamela Perkins, Administrative Manager.
Vasquez, Director of Communications.
Stephen Dankberg, Council of Petition.
Kenneth Walker, Council Petition.
Steve Richmond, General Counsel. Tom Sadi, Candidate Records Unit.
Brian Dean, Candidate Records Unit.
Matt Graves, Candidate Records Unit.
Betty Ann Cadizio, Deputy Chief.
Diane Rudiana.
All right, to enable us to move matters along in an orderly fashion, we ask the cooperation and understanding of all present to comply with the board's procedures. I want to remind all persons appearing before the commissioners at this hearing must fill out the notice of appearance form, which is available at the front counter. Each person must present the completed form for each specification or matter to our staff as they come up to the podium to speak. I want to remind all commissioners, board staff, attorneys, and members of the public that only one person should speak at any time so that the audio and video systems can accurately record the proceedings. Also, please speak directly into the microphone so that all present can hear the proceedings. I would ask that all present place their cell phones on vibrate or silent ring or turn them off during the course of the proceedings. I want to also advise all present that this board is required by law to record how each commissioner votes on each matter. In the event that we are not unanimous in our vote on a given matter, I will ask that our council conduct a roll call vote of all the commissioners for the record. In addition, I'd like to add make a motion to reconsider 16 CRU prima facie matters enrollments for the County of Queens to place these individuals back on the ballot. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or against? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. And I call upon Steve Richmond, General Counsel for the Board, to call the calendar for this hearing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, in accordance with the revised public notice, which is in your folders, as amended now, the first item on the continuation of the hearings on designated petition matters is the candidate enrollment unit prima facie report on enrollment issues and over designations for Kings County.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. According to your recent motion just now, Queens, I'm going to read off the enrollment issues we'll be revisiting for the Queens Democratic Party. Following names, if you're present, please come forward if you have questions. Yes, this is to restore. Mohammed Rahman, Surinder Singh, Yuvraj Kaur, Roger Bao, Kevin McCabe, Jibrin Adu, Burton Wynn, Marcus Morden, Eddie Barnett, Lorenzo Simpson, James Maggie, Mario Matos, Mohammed Islam, Daisy Houston, Cheryl Khan, and Laala Howard.
Anybody present? I would move that we restore these individuals and I guess take them off the CRU enrollment issue. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries.
Those candidates will appear on the ballot.
Thank you.
Where you have the candidate enrollment issues for Kings?
Yes. Now I'm going to read the prima facie enrollment issues for Kings County. If you're present, please come forward in a queue and be prepared to address the commissioners if necessary. Democratic, Barry Cooper, Maya Martinez, Luis Vargas, Sean R. Francis, Charlotte M. Cropper, Stuart Wildless, Tracy A. Cashew, Barry Green Hunt, Bruce Toussaint, Jerry Alexis, Philippe Agas, Small Hope, David Glass, Philip Napolitano, Walter Pernici, Jonathan E. Cosme, Vladimir Ionia, Daniel J. Dennehy, Santos Salerno, Rolf Carl, Sean Hazlett, Akiva Zamchek, Michael Shoddy, Anthony Tejeda, Vincent Stafford, Robert V. King, Ian Hanley, Roy Anderson, Philip McBride, Dane Brandon Supram, Michael Bolus, John Picario, Jeffrey S. Rodas, Edward McCarthy, Joseph A. Bernardo, Neil Lombardo, Stephen Redor, Steve Shore, Archie Lipton, Howard Cohen, Spencer Sinez, Stanley Scott, Zakiya R. Miller, Penny Fisher, Merrill Matthews, Veronica Campbell, Zayamika Zarita, Eva Marie Graham, Dana Winston Day, Irene Goldfarb, Rosalind Dornhelm, Margarita Spenyuk, Anna Mokrosova, Sarah Blauder, Sarah Burton, Sophie Hayes, Lori Wheelock, Annie Asbal, Aladia Ramos, Joanna Dillon, Maria Acevedo, Sonia M. Medrano, Teresa Fields, Francis McCarthy, Sarah Sigler, Elizabeth Logan, Mardine Gershit, Lillian Silver, Marlene Hodel. That concludes the Democratic part of this.
Jeff just told me to do the time.
Commissioner, you want to do the Democrats first? If we have anybody here who wants to-
Sure, why not?
So you want your name?
Yes, I'm Barry Cooper.
What page is it? Barry Cooper's on there?
First name, number one.
First name. Barry.
Barry Cooper.
Barry with a B.
I got you.
Oh.
Mr.
Since
Cooper, where do
candidate
you,
registration does not exist.
where do you live? Where are you registered? What address?
I'm registered right now. The process was I had to change the registration. So I'm registered right now at 542 Lexington. But I changed the registration to my current address. So that was the discrepancy on the petition process because this is my first time running, so I was unaware and I got wrong information. So I have address and I have certain bills to state that I live at the current address in the 55th district.
But the address listed on the petition was 1009
Yes.
Putnam Avenue. Where did that come from?
That's my address. That's my current address.
It's your current address.
Yes.
But you're not registered for that.
Yeah, I'm not registered. I've been living there since November, and when I decided to run for the seat, somebody told me that I had 32 days, before the primary election. So I didn't know the process fully. So I just, happened to call the Board of Elections about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I actually changed it.
Could you fill out the form now?
No, I actually came here a week ago, and I changed the
So
form.
you
I have the receipt.
re-registered, you filled out a new form and
Yes.
submitted it?
I have the receipt here.
Can you pass it up to council?
Receipt saying that he submitted one registration form.
How fast do we process?
Can they look it up?
It's dated 8/1 from.
Maybe just get a copy of the clip, and I'll put it in there and have it.
We'll just second call it, okay? We'll call it back, let her do a little bit of research. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Dane Brandon Supram. I am running for county committee for the 57 and 56 electric district. I believe you.
Page 5, second box.
Page 5, Commissioners.
Says your registration does not exist.
That is correct, sir, and I do apologize about that. However, the day when I handed in the petitions for being on the electoral ballot for September, I changed not only the way my name was spelled, but also my current address. The address that I put, I believe, on the petition is 42 Troy Avenue. It's where I currently live. My mailing address was 40 Troy Avenue, literally right next door, and my license still says the same. Anything concerning my mailing address and permanent address have either been 40 Troy Avenue or 42. I wasn't unaware, just like the gentleman that spoke before me, that concerning petitions and being elected, there was an issue with actual residency.
You say you reside at 42 Troy Avenue?
I'm sorry, sir?
You say you reside at 42 Troy?
I have resided at 42 Troy Avenue since I believe September of 2005.
And where are you registered at?
Registration originally, when I registered, was for Westbury. I moved it to 40 Troy Avenue. I've never, until of July, I moved it to 42.
So you filed a new registration
That
showing
I-
the 42 address.
Correct, a
Do
correction.
you have a copy of that?
I do not have it on me, but I know it is on file because I was sent
Can we have someone just look
correspondence.
it up also?
Second call.
All right.
Would you
We're
have
gonna
someone look it up?
check, and if it's there, you'll be okay.
Okay.
We're gonna put you later on, and give us time to do the research.
Not a problem, so I should just hang around, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll call you again.
Thank you again.
Any other appearances?
Good afternoon, Robert Carroll from Wolfson and Carroll. I'm here for the county committee members in both the 44th and 50th Assembly Districts.
Yes, thank you.
Most of these, I will be forthright, are typos. The first one is, on I believe page 3, SMA Hope at 474 East 4th Street is what,
Page two, second to the bottom.
What's the issue with that?
Supposed to be Sam?
No, it's not. It's supposed to be. His name is actually. His first name is SM, and his middle initial is A. And it was written as SMA Hope, not
On the
SM.
petition.
It's definitely on the cover sheet. I'm not. I have the copy of the county committee cover sheet. I don't have a copy.
Well, the cover sheet
Of the
doesn't know the petition.
Yes, and so yes, I believe on the petition, it's the typo there.
And was a printed letter submitted in advance?
It was not.
Based on the information, if anyone was objecting, they couldn't, there was no one registered in that system by that name. That's why they were here on the prima facie. And no disrespect, Mr. Governor, you know the problem. If it was a printer's error, somebody should have done it before the hearings.
I understand.
So what other ones there?
I believe your next one is Quasim G. Hafar in the 33rd ED in the 44th. And they put you. I'm being told that you've already put Quasim back. My notes are. And then for the 50th AD, I have a Rolf Carl.
Top of page
Top. And I have him listed on the cover sheet at 102 Eagle Street. I believe that matches the petition. According to this, he is registered at 103 Milton. And there was no printer's error letter issued in that. I have a John Tapper, who I do believe is at 141 Java Street. This is the 50th Assembly, the 9th ED.
We don't have anybody on the night.
Okay, that may have been already ruled, I apologize. Sean Hazlitt,
This is
that's,
page 4, second one.
at 700 Manhattan Avenue. That's the only address that I have for that individual.
Do you have his buff cord?
I do not.
So
What are you doing?
what are you asking us to do?
Steve, I just found out about this. I just came from court. I'm trying to I bound these petitions. I made these cover sheets. I came here with due diligence for my client.
Mr. Carroll, did these people give consent to be the candidates?
They did.
So didn't they provide you with their names and addresses?
They provided the campaigns.
These were on the petitions, these were offered to the voters to say, these are the candidates, this is where they live. Our obligation just is to match the records. If they're there, they stay on the ballot. Unless you have evidence to show that we have made an error, such as someone changed their registration and wasn't caught.
Well, the next one I do, for Michael Shade, in the 3030D, in the 50th, you have placed him at 71 Sotton Street. He, on the petition and on the cover sheet, he is listed at 71 Sutton with a U, not no.
That's what it says, Sutton, S-U-T-T-O-N. That's where the candidate's registration does not exist though.
Okay, I just in the records, I see that it was printed with an O. I thought that was maybe
Yeah, I mean, looking at
the
the
typo.
enrollment report, this is, as I said, this has been updated, the staff reviewed it. Do you have a bus card for him at that day?
Can we send a call this one regarding the appearance that we just came before?
Do you want time to just get the voter reg identification numbers and card?
If I could, that would be fantastic.
That's all.
Thank you.
Alright, come this way and I'll help you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I move that we adopt the candidate enrollment issues as it relates to all those matters that have not been specifically addressed by us. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. The rest will be second call.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I believe you have one more prima facie issue relating to over designation in Kings County.
Yes.
Mr. Ted, let me see on the prima facie report.
Concern?
Commissioners, on the enrollment issues, we only completed the Democratic Party, so we only got through,
You mean there are other parties still?
with enrollment issues, Commissioner.
Again, I'm going to call names. If you're present, please come forward if you would like to be heard. Republican Party, James M. Ripa. That is the only Republican name. Following are conservative names for County Commissioner. Anthony Reyes, Alexander Miller, William J. Lavasseur, Jennifer L. Splin, Luciana A. Russo, Inez Sosa, David Schulter, Janet Cerruti, Margaret R. McGinley, Fred M. Cohen, Lei Wine Chin, Leslie J. Sorchi, Diana Vasco, Rose Juski, John McTeague, Josephine Kaplan, Vivian M. Salvano, Luigi Uccio, David Koff, John Vito Marinelli, Joel N. Weiner, Roseanne Zito, James L. Scahill, Alexandra M. Cassar, Antonietta Tulmiero, Jennifer A. Manning, Donald F. McIntyre, John J. Gilhooly, George J. Cassar, Deborah A. Ford, Michael J. Ferguson, Jane Warnick, Donna Moriarty, Douglas M. Del Franco, William A. Tiedemann, Martin Young, Peter O'Morrill, Jesus A. Arboleda, Joseph P. Graves, Dominic Barbara, Kendra Pierre, Harry Jenkins, John Watkins, Beverly Jones, Isaac N. Long Jr., Dennison McIntyre, Alfred Tiriolo, John P. Burns, William H. Mertz, Amos Barrett, Edwin Delaney, Ellen Mendez, Joseph A. Riddick, Larry L. Bugat, William A. Ryan, Rudy Jackman, and Helen F. Carmody.
Any appearances for those Republican or Conservative Party candidates?
Steve, I have a question. If somebody signed the petition, say with their name on it, would the signing of the petition reinstate them on our records, or does it have to be?
No, Commissioner, we have held that they have to do an actual communication directly to the board, otherwise we'd have to go through every signature signing a petition and then update the records. So our policy has been in the either correctly voter registration form an activated ballot be cast, or a change of address received from the postal service under the election law would move to change the address.
Or an absentee, right, also?
Or, yes, an application on an absentee application, yes, that they said they would.
How about if during the course of hearings, that they come forward and indicate that they signed a petition, what we've done in the
We
past?
would tell them to fill out a voter registration form and then we would process it.
Would that reinstate their registration?
Usually you accept it if they fill it out and they received it, but they show up in the registration and matches what's on the petition.
Yes. Yeah, that's it, that's it.
Yes, Mr. President, could we recall, I'm sorry, I apologize.
We finished the report from the public, so I'm not on to the next.
All right. I move that we adopt the candidate enrollment issues, the prima facie calendar for the candidates and for the Republicans and Conservatives. Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? Motion carries. We'll second call the remainders. I think one.
Is everyone ready?
I think the first one, Barry Cooper, was ready.
Cooper, are you back? Do you have your record?
We had it.
We have it.
Mr. Cooper, I am in possession of our records indicating that you do reside, I have a board of reg here at 1009 Putnam Avenue, which is the address on the cover sheet and the petition. So I would move that we remove this from the candidate enrollment issues. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. You are on.
Thank you.
I think we're still working on one other one.
No, we have, Mr. Cook.
He's still working. Is anything else ready?
Commissioners, we could go ahead now, if you're ready, with the candidate records unit prima facie report on COVID designation.
Okay.
Two districts that are listed.
Yes, Commissioners, we have over designations for uncontested conservative county committee. The names are as follows: Daniel Furman Peguero, Osman A. Munguia, Luis A. Candelario. Those are for ED 39 of the 51st AD. And Ronald McNeil, Alfred Casaretti, Donald McNeil, and Peter O. Morrow for the 65th AD and 51st AD. The vote for was 2 on the party call, and in each ED they filed 4 candidates.
Any appearances?
Daniel Kelly. Yes, it is. We have one name in the third name, Daniel Kelly.
No, yeah, it's Daniel
Donald.
Kelly
Did I-
and Furman Picaro.
Commissioner, if you would correct page 1, the 4 candidates, in the first one, the first candidate name is Daniel Kelly.
Yeah, I have a
And
typo.
it's
All right, so correct.
So it's 4 candidates in each ED, 2 of them designated.
We need
I
to,
move
Any
we
appearance?
adopt the
second? Anybody opposed or abstained? Motion carries.
Candidates will not appear on the ballot. Commissioner, the next item would be the recall of the revised clerk's reports that were put over from last Wednesday's hearings. It's the folder labeled King with no designation about OTBs. Commissioners, in your folder, if you find them, the first is the revised clerk's report for specs 71 and 72. Democratic Party, Kings County, the objections of Rona Taylor to Sharon Clark, the judge of the civil court. The revised and corrected totals reported by the clerks are 8,162 signatures submitted, 1,551 invalids, leaving 6,611 valid. 1,500 are required to qualify for the ballot. Appearances, please.
Aaron Mazel to the objector. Can I just have a copy?
For the candidate Bernard Alter and Barbaro, 26 4th Street, Brooklyn, New York. I believe I filed a notice of appearance on the last matters on. You need one again, or you have my appearance?
Is there anything that
I
anybody
thought
want to
you
add
need
anything?
one each meeting. That's what we call.
Do you want to add anything for the candidate?
No, I think you quite adequately put something on there, Mr. Arajo, when you said herself or himself. That was the whole issue on this case the last time, you may recall. The clerks have done a good job. They've revised the report, and I would respectfully request that this clerk's report be moved.
Do you want to add anything for the objected?
We're going to see what the appellate division says.
Well, Supreme Court's already ruled against him, so
Is there a motion?
That's why we're going to see what the
Is
appellate
there a
division
motion to adopt
Yeah, right.
Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? The motion carries.
Clerk's report is adopted. The candidate will appear on the ballot. Thank you. Commissioners, the second group of, second recall matter relates to the amended clerk's report for specification number 87-1, Working Families Party. Objections by Elvin Santiago and Elvira Vargas to the petition of Debbie Medina, the State Senate, 18th District. The amended clerk's report reflects 49 signatures submitted, 3 invalid, leaving 46 valid, 44 are required to qualify. Appearances, please.
This is not you?
No.
All right.
Just
All right. Any appearances? Is there a motion to adopt the clerk's report? Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? The motion carries.
The amended clerk's report is adopted. The candidate will appear on the ballot. Commissioner, the third recall is the objection, a revised clerk's report. It was spec number 88. The objection of Pat Minicello to the petition of Stamatis Lilakakis for member of the Assembly in the 46th Assembly District Republican Party. Clerk's report, 847 signatures submitted, 279 invalid, leaving 568 valid, 500 are required to qualify. Appearances, please.
Aaron Maslow and Lucretia Regina Plana to the objector.
Peter Cipriano for the candidate.
Is there anything to add on behalf of the candidate?
The only thing that I would have to add today is with respect to the notary issue that was left before the commissioners the last time we met. I would like to point out that in the original specification, the objector failed to meet Rule H3 of the City Board of Elections, which holds that you have to support supporting documentation with specificity to an issue that would not be within BOE records. So I have here my little note detailing, would you like a copy? Would you folks like copies? Detailing what I'm talking about. Without supporting documentation in the original spec, I don't believe the objector has standing to pursue this issue. There was no notary license presented, nothing whatsoever, just an objection. And the original clerk's report did the right thing, I think, in not ruling on that because they didn't have the information available to them.
The original objection, I believe, said it didn't specify the title of the officer. It didn't say whether he was a commissioner or a notary, which is a correct objection. He didn't. It was the candidate's representative who then brought up the issue that, well, we don't need it because the number is there, and it was he who produced
But that couldn't
a
be used to
number that
invalidate.
did not match.
That couldn't be used to
We're
invalidate.
on the revised. clerk's
sorry?
report, on the revised clerk's
Yes.
report, is there anything you want to add with respect to that?
I do have a list, if we'd like to look at it. I have a list of,
You're on the ballot. What do you have a list of?
I have a list only if necessary.
Going over the math once again, there were 15 signatures regarding the scrubbing witness putting the wrong address down that were not included. There were 2 SAPs that were recounted that were not included. There was a duplicate that wasn't ruled on and then was looked over and then was ruled on as stated. And there are 3 date incompletes that were not included in the final tallies.
This is Rico, right? You were all both given an opportunity to sit with the board members as they
Yes.
did the line by line?
That's the only reason I came prepared with the list, Commissioner. I'm prepared to absolutely move on at this point.
And apparently, when the clerks ruled on the date, they just said it didn't matter that it was incomplete?
Yes, yes. And they would not, look up and recount the SAPs, and they would not look over the duplicates, alter dates.
The
There's a lot of things
total
we left
number,
out.
do the total number of, quote, errors or mistakes made by the clerks that you still have equal 66?
More.
68.
68.
That's to be 69.
69.
More.
How many do you have?
Bring it down.
Doesn't that include the notary?
Yeah, no, it brings it down to 194, so.
And these are the same objections you had on the original spec?
Yes.
Yeah, line by line was done. The borough team went through this petition. The objector had every opportunity to submit amendments, which she did. She emailed the chief clerk an additional list of objections. I mean, this is going on and on and
Handed in
on.
person to the chief clerk.
There was an additional email sent by you.
You don't get a second bite at that apple. It's what you submit on the initial specifications
Correct.
of objection.
Correct.
And
And it's
that's
still
what it
there.
is,
Correct.
and then,
And there's still math errors.
Can we hear from the chief and deputy, or someone from the office?
I think that, you're speaking
Go to the
about
microphone, I
page
can't hear
70.
you.
You're speaking, I believe, about page 73, and the,
Ms. Giuliani, you're really gonna have to speak into that mic, because you gotta pick it up. Is it on?
on page 73, the item included in the list of exceptions is subscribing witness, date incomplete, all signatures invalid, fatal error. That is not, that's not what you're speaking about, is it?
One of them, yes, because the sheet before, it
We
was
don't have
all
it.
data completes
We
was
don't
thrown out.
have an objection on page 73 in the specification. The original specification does not have any objection to the
We're
subtraction.
talking about the math errors.
So therefore,
So
we
mathematical.
were under the impression that we don't work it unless it's in the original specification.
I think what Ms. Regina Potter is saying is that the math in the recap was incorrect. Is that correct?
right, well, it may be correct, it just may not agree with your view of things. So for instance.
No, I think what she's saying is whatever the board ruled on line by line, the recap is incorrect. Is that it? Not that we're disagreeing and change the
But
recap.
Commissioners,
that's
I
an
would just
actual
point
recap.
out it's not incorrect by 69 signatures,
Right, but
which,
you disagree with the,
Which, again, you have a summary in the report saying removing 279 signatures. The clerk, you reviewed the report, you reviewed the math, correct? And you believe this is the accurate, correct result of your findings?
is there a motion? Second. All in favor?
And what about the notary?
Anybody opposed or abstain? Motion carries.
I guess
Clerk's
they're
report is
rejecting
adopted,
on the notary.
Spec 88 candidate will appear on the ballot. And, next group is the amended or revised clerk's report in specifications 95, Democratic Party, the objections of Lucina Clark, Commissioners, Commissioners, in 95-1, the clerk's report being submitted to you is just reflecting the decisions that were made at the hearing. This is the amended clerk's report with correct math now. I think the chiefs are presenting this simply to get your approval of the revised math based on the hearings last week with the information there. So the corrected
Motion
numbers.
made, is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining, the motion carries.
So the revised clerk's report is adopted. And the final recall is the amended clerk's report to specs 97 and 98. Republican Party objections by Jeannie Chitteret and Lai Hua Fang. The petition of Joseph Marinello, a member of the State Assembly, 47th AD. Clerk's report, 427 signatures submitted, 25 invalid, 402 valid, 408 are required to appear on the ballot. Appearances, please.
Raymond Riley on behalf of the candidate.
Susan Morrow on behalf of the objector.
Commissioners, when we last met on this issue, the commissioners ruled unanimously to reinstate the candidate with 211, I believe. I had then departed, and apparently there was a decision to revise the report. I guess based on an issue where the report wasn't worked in its entirety. I'm not quite sure when the decision was made. I wasn't there for it. I've also not been present for a rework of any specification of objection, which would have then changed the clerk's report. I'm also unclear as to how a specification can be reworked without a list of exceptions submitted by the candidate, which was never done, by the objector rather, which was never done.
Could we just have the board address that?
This, I believe, was the issue where the line by lines had the month and the day, but not the year, and the subscribing witness statement included the year. The candidate came forth with documentation, and the commissioners restored 31 signatures, and they voted on the restoration of 31 signatures. After that, we reworked the 31 signatures to see which of them were in fact invalid on line by lines. I gather that the candidate's representative was not here at that time.
Does that sound?
That sounds accurate as to what took place. I'm just not sure why a spec was reworked without a list of exceptions submitted by the objector. The board ruled.
No, let me explain. We were going to reinstate 31 signatures based on a particular objection that we overruled the clerks on. However, we didn't know whether any of those 31 were subject to other objections that may or may not be valid. And so that's what was done, just to clarify.
Okay.
So there was nothing new interposed, but there may have been additional objections to those line by lines that might also have been a valid objection. And so that's what was done.
And those objections weren't worked prior, because they were listed prior to the incomplete date.
We only removed signature one, so depending on, in this case, the clerk's ruled that the date was incomplete, they took that signature off. The other objection that was stated were not reflected in the clerk's report. Commissioners reversed the determination with respect to date incomplete. However, in those cases where the original specification had additional objections to those signatures, that's what the commissioner sent back to be reworked and come back today with an updated and revised report.
Okay, just to clarify, those objections were listed prior to the date.
Those were the original specifications.
And usually when a specification is worked, it's worked left to right, correct? When you would go from the first objection to the next one to the next one. In these cases, the incomplete date was listed last, which I guess would lead myself and others to assume that the specification had been worked in its entirety.
Unless they look at the strongest, what they believe to be the strongest objection first. And that's probably what happened.
Then somebody, I mean, I would.
could have seen it in the same category and removed all of those in the category. I don't know as if they definitely go left to right, right to left. If they see that there's an obvious error, no matter what the order is, as long as it's on there, if the signature would have failed because of what they thought was a mistake, that's what they would have used.
Okay. With respect, I have additional exceptions to submit. I did not submit them to the last meeting because I was ruled on the ballot. I would like the opportunity to submit those now.
How many do you have?
12 on the nose.
Does the objector want to add anything? Otherwise, we're going to designate a team to work these exceptions.
The only thing that we would say, Commissioner, is quoting Commissioner Humane from a few moments ago, that, you know, the opportunity to submit exceptions to the report occurred the first time and not the last time. Learned counsel came prepared at the last meeting with exceptions. And it would seem to me that he should be bound by whatever exceptions he brought forward at the last opportunity, not this opportunity.
If I can be provided to respond to that. I had no reason to submit any additional exceptions to the 31 that I submitted because the board ruled me on the ballot. There was no reason to waste the commissioner or the board's time with additional exceptions after I was ruled on. I mean, the candidate was on, why continue the process any further than necessary? And again, when I departed the meeting, the candidate was ruled, the amended report was accepted and the candidate was ruled on the ballot. It was then realized after the fact that the specifications needed to be reworked. If I was here at the time when that was done, I would have submitted the exceptions there.
Yes, Commissioner, this came back on second, the clerk's reported that the arithmetic doesn't seem to match by just restoring the 31, that there were other objections.
So I think what's distinguishable is the fact that he had left already as opposed to all parties being present. So I would, it's within the parameters.
The right point, Commissioner, there was the line number, page number, line number, and what the objection to the exception is for a ruling with only 12 signatures, including one that the arithmetic is all by one.
Can we designate a team to just work those quickly? All right, we'll second call that one.
Thank you.
Is that for that?
That concludes, Commissioner, we have one additional hearing on the Queen's report of specifications of rejection.
Steve, before we do that, can we just,
Recall, sure. Anyone else here on the enrollment issues? Come back.
Can we do the other guy because he has to leave?
Sure.
Of course. Mr. Sukaran?
Sukaran, yes, sir.
All right, it's my understanding you filled out a new registration with the address of 42 Troy Avenue, is that correct?
That is correct,
And
thank
I
you.
did see a copy of it, we have it. So I would move that we remove him from this list. Is there a second? All in favor, anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries, you're on the ballot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Kennel, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me some extra time to look up the buff cards. I did find 2 buff cards that corroborate the cover sheet and the petitions. One is for Sophie E. Hayes, who lives at 109 Jewel Street, apartment 1L, and she is listed as that on the 50th.
Page 9, Commissioner, the last entry.
Can you pass up the, yeah.
Is this the active registration? And how is she listed in the system? This may be one of the records in the system, but did you get a printout of the active, what the information is?
That was the only printout that they gave me, Steve.
What was that?
The DMV motor application from 1987. Not 87, from 2012, so I don't know if it's something that
I
changed.
just came back, so I don't understand what they.
Is what's in the system on the voter information page? There is another document to change.
Probably
Yeah, because if it's archived, it may be that she's in inactive or cancel status.
Then I have Rolf Carl at 102 Eagle Street, also in the 50th Assembly. He's listed at 102 Eagle Street on the petition and on the cover sheet. I believe there was some confusion because his previous address was 103 Milton Street, but he changed that on June 10th, 2012, and here's his buff card.
It's on page 4, I believe. First one.
Right. Yeah, this is a buff card from 2012. If we can get the act and see what it is, there may have been a subsequent change. So on the buff card.
What do you want, Steve? Why don't you just tell me what you want us to do?
Photo information sheet.
Activity, so
No,
no one
just,
should
no,
have the question.
just the first page, the photo information page. We'll have it whether the active status and what our current address is.
Did you do this on all of them?
Those are the other buff cards that I did pull. They had the typos or the incorrect address that you had listed. And so I was not going to bring those forward again.
Can you just list those names so we have them, and then we'll just move those
Um,
names on the list?
Top of page 4.
Your interns can handle this. Let's go. Go in there. Go to Jen.
Those names are Sean Hazlitt. He is in the 50th Assembly.
No, the two that you have.
Oh, the two,
The ones that he can't, that there is no response to. So we could just keep them on the prima facie report.
The only thing you question, I guess, is Carl on page 4.
Steve, the commissioner's asking a different question. Counselor, please answer the commissioner's question, which is, go through the list of the ones that you don't, that you know you're not going to be able to rehabilitate, and they can keep those in the report, and then we could deal with the two remaining.
Yes, Sean Hazlitt in the 50th Assembly. Akiva Zamchek in the 50th. Michael Shade. Irene Goldfarb in the 44th. Lori Wheelock in the 50th. Sarah Burton in the 50th Assembly. And Rosalind Dornhelm in the 44th Assembly District.
I move that we keep those on the candidate enrollment issues. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. So now we're left with just two.
Yes, that would be Rolf Carl and Sophie Hayes.
And Commissioner, Ms. Hayes' address has been changed pursuant to the United States Postal Service. Change of address submitted by the Postal Service on May 28th of this year, that she moved from 109 Jewel Street to 78 Mesereau Avenue, number 3. So the address on the petition is not correct according to the voter registration.
Okay.
What about the other one?
So the voter registration on that stayed the same, and it's just the U.S. Postal Service that changed the address?
Under the election law, the voter filed a change of address form with the Postal Service that she moved, and the Postal Service updated it when we did the NCOA check.
But is it possible to just change your permanent mailing address?
Yes. Without changing your residence?
According to the election law, once a year, we submit the entire voter registration roll against the national change of address. And if there's a match, the election law directs us to change the address to the new address if it remains within the city of New York. By statute, that becomes your registration address, so your permanent home address.
So if I have all my mother's mail come to my house because she's too elderly to take care of it, that means I have to change her registration where she votes?
We will check it. If it was received that way, it'll come in that way.
Well, that's news to me. That's news to me.
That's the election.
But also part of the election law, isn't the board supposed to inform voters if their status is going to be changed and give them time?
Change. A change of address is not required to get a confirmation notice under the election law. Yeah, they'll get the new information notice in August, where they vote now. And it'll be going to the address where the Postal Service is delivering their mail.
This is, does that candidate have any connection to the old address?
I do not know.
just as a point, the case law holds, you know, having more than one address is commonplace among candidates or registered voters. And it's not really up to us, I think, in some of the leading cases to try to figure it all out. So maybe for the future, keep that in mind.
I will, thank you.
And in the case of Mr. Rolf Call, there was a postal service change of address in 2013, and according to our records, he voted in the general election from his new address on Milton Street, not on the address listed on Eagle Street.
I move that we keep Sean, is it Sean Hazelet?
Sophie Hayes
Sophie
and
Hayes.
Carl Wall.
I move that we take her off this list and keep Ralph Carl on the list. Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Because you want to be voted on the analysis. The other one did. There's a difference.
Commissioners, are you directing that we change her address back to her old address? Because right now the mail is going to be going.
We'll second call that discussion.
Take care of that and check.
Again, under the law, we've changed the address.
We'll figure that one out. All right, we're calling Queens now?
Yes. Commissioners, this is the clerk's report on specs number 65 and 66. Just so you're aware, there was a page numbering defect in the petitions of candidate Everly Brown. He cured that defect, which restarted the clock. New general and specific objections were submitted. And this is the Queens clerk's report for Queens spec 65 and 66. The objections of Michael Duval and Lisa George to the Democratic Party petitions of Everly Brown for member of the New York State Senate 10th District. Clerk's reports 4,928 signatures submitted, 3,583 invalid, leaving 1,345 valid. 1,000 signatures are required to appear on the ballot. The clerks referred to the board the fact that the spec cover sheet incorrectly identifies volumes numbers Queens 191 and 092. However, petition numbers Queens 191 and 192 are correct on the spec worksheets.
Appearances?
Garth Bashan, 136-11 Farmers Boulevard, Springfield Gardens, 11434 for the candidate.
You handed in the notice of appearance?
Yes.
All right, great. Is there anything you want to add?
It's
on the ballot.
You'll be surprised, I'll move the clerk's report, but I just want to. But I just want, it's just for the sake, because we're in court, and I just want to clarify the record for the previous thing that's been served. There was a certificate of service filed by one Stephen Anthony Bahir that says that he served the specification of objection in the first instance by certified mail. Just want to clarify to the board record that the board had already ruled that there was no certified mail. So this is a false affidavit and wanted to be entered into the record. There was no.
It's not going to be into the record. We'll accept it for filing.
Right, exactly. That's all. I wanted to be clarified that there was no certification of
The
mail.
original spec we dismissed as
Yes.
a service not recorded. This was a new spec filed.
I understand that, but there was an affidavit filed here that you dismissed it because there was not certified mail, but there was an affidavit filed that it was certified mail. So that's all. All right. So with that.
I'll make a motion to.
Well, with that, I want to congratulate Mr. Pataki and the members of the Queens Board for doing a fine job. With that, I move the clerk's report.
I make a motion to adopt. Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries.
Clerk's report is adopted. The candidate will appear on the ballot. Commissioners, the next calendar items are the OTB petition challenges and the OTB prima facie report from the General Counsel's office. There is only one item on the legal prima facie report. It relates to the Kings County Conservative Party opportunity to ballot for member of the Assembly in the 45th AD. No committee to receive notices is set forth on the petition, and in accordance with the decisions of the Appellate Division, 2nd and 3rd Department, the failure to list the committee to receive notices is a fatal defect because there's no one to serve. That's why we place it on the prima facie calendar. Any appearances? We did not notify anyone since there was no one to receive notices.
Move to adopt the legal prima facie report. Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries.
Commissioners, the remaining items is the King's report, clerk's reports on specifications of objection filed to various OTB petitions. The first is spec number 133, Independence Party. The objections of Alexandra Deanne to the OTB petition for member of the Assembly in the 46th AD. Clerk's report, 183 signatures submitted, 147 invalid, leaving 36 valid, 101 are required to qualify for the ballot. Appearances, please.
Yes. I'm here on behalf of Daniel Slavin, a member of the committee to receive notices.
Given
Authorization was submitted.
and signed by Mr. Slavin.
Do you have a list of exceptions?
No, I have a very simple objection to the standing of the objector and the validity of the objector's voter registration, which I'm contesting on the grounds that she has not voted in 13 years, and the Board of Elections should have invalidated it because its rules say so. After a voter has not voted for 2 general elections, they must invalidate it. Additionally, I have evidence that she lives at a new address.
As part of the board's process, do we look at,
To look at this, the Commissioners, under Rule S, Rule H, the chief and the deputy are supposed to examine the objector, because if the objector lacks standing, i.e. they're not residing in the political subdivision, they're supposed to report to the Borough Commissioners and then not vote the spec. The gentleman misstates the law. You are not removed after not voting in 2 elections. The only time you are removed from the list is that after the board receives notice from the Postal Service that you have moved, then you go into inactive status, then if you don't vote in 2 successive federal elections, then you're purged from the list.
after being marked inactive?
Inactive. If you continue to receive the mail, there's permanent personal registration in New York State. There's no obligation for you to vote to keep your registration active.
And that's the situation here?
The voter has not voted since the year 2001, sir, and I have very clear, irrefutable evidence that she lives at a new address that she is not currently registered at, and therefore the registration should have been invalidated by the board on those grounds. Now, even though procedurally it does not choose to invalidate a registered voter unless unless the mail check fails, I believe because of the fact that I'm about to submit to you evidence, you should A, invalidate her registration, and then B, find her to not have standing to object to the opportunity to ballot petitions.
Could you stand in what?
I have one document, which is a photograph of Miss Diatri's name on a doorbell at a new address, which is 514 83rd Street.
How do we know that's her?
I have a witness present today who will testify that he took this photograph of the door box at the new address.
But how do we know that's her?
How do we know? Well, the last name. Well, I have a second piece of evidence, and when you group them together, the evidence is irrefutable. My second piece of evidence is a whitepages.com search, which reveals, 1, that she lives at 514 83rd Street, and 2, the same phone number, which was submitted with the original buff card back with the Board of Elections at her original address at 59 Gelston Avenue, was transferred in the same data as the White Pages information. So you have a public listing showing that the objector lives at a new address, and you have a witness that visited that new address, photographed a name at the doorbell at the new address, and will testify that he did take that photograph. So I will submit the second piece of evidence, which is the whitepages.com public listing, which includes the same phone number that was submitted on her original 1990s buff card, which the board has on file.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the White Pages is a public listing per se. There's sometimes misinformation on that site.
Mr. Richmond, can we treat this as a challenge to registration?
Well, he has to follow statutory form, fill out an affidavit, sign it, give it, and state what information you have to before the commission.
The testimony is given better legal standing than an affidavit, and I have somebody who will
Not
testify.
under the election law, for this is a civic procedure to challenge the registration of someone.
You can't cross-examine an affidavit. I have a witness.
We don't take testimony generally here.
Sometimes you do. I was here last week.
And you took somebody's testimony?
Yes, took Mr. Daniel Slavin, who I'm representing today's testimony, as a matter of fact. So,
Do
respectfully,
you want to challenge?
I want, A, what I submitted to you, and B, I would respectfully ask that you hear Mr. Perlin's testimony so that we can proceed with the ruling I'm asking you to make, which is to invalidate her registration and then invalidate the objection.
Mr. Richmond?
Commissioners, the statute is very clear. Any person may challenge the registration to a voter by executing and delivering to the board his affidavit stating the reasons why the voter should be canceled, then he goes forward, appear before the board, swear it before it and forward, and then we begin an investigation. We do not act purely.
But what does that mean with respect to the clerk's report? Would that stay a
No,
determination of the
Commissioner, we
clerk's
have,
report?
the clerk's report was submitted timely, and if there was a challenge to registration, they were aware of this. There was nothing preventing them from even presenting it last week.
It's not too late. The opportunity ballot petition hasn't been verified yet. I don't think it's too late.
No, it's presumptively valid when filed,
Why are we having a hearing if it's presumptively valid?
because there was a specifications were filed to challenge it.
Right, and I'm saying the specifications don't have standing.
Not according to the board's records. The registered voter is.
First of all, I'm making two arguments. One is that the
Let him
board
finish.
should...
Let him finish, all right? Stop cutting him off. Let him
The
finish.
registered voter, at the time that the objections were filed, the specifications were received and reviewed by the clerk and the deputy, is still an active voter. He's admitted that it's in our registration records. He's going to begin a challenge under 5-220 in the register of the election law. That's a process that is prospective, not retroactive. We will cancel the persons after you receive the information. I believe in the Manhattan case, when we had the last challenge, it took them a couple of weeks to verify, and then the commissioners committee acted. There's a whole statutory process outlined on how we verify it, and it's worked for the board in the past.
No, I understand, but if the...
Change of address to effectuate that anyhow? Somebody just hasn't changed their address, would that be the result? If we go under the assumption that some of this evidence is true, it seems like somebody didn't change their address.
Do you guys in the same ED?
Do we cancel people's registration?
I don't know if it's the AD or not.
Yeah, I haven't known about the voter activity.
The board will find it's in the same assembly district, but a different election district.
If it's the same assembly district, then she has standing to file.
Not if she didn't re-register.
You were saying if she's in the same assembly
Yes, in
district.
order to be a qualified objector for a public office, you have to be a registered voter living in the political subdivision. So if she resides in the 46th Assembly District, regardless, she has standing to file the objection.
Oh, so let's wait till we get that,
Not if it's invalid.
all right, we'll second call it. All right, move on to the next one.
Yes, Commissioners, that's second call. The clerk's report regarding specification number 135, Republican Party, objections by Diana Sepulveda to the petition of opportunity to ballot petition, I should say, a member of the Assembly in the 45th Assembly District. Commissioners, we have received a notice from the first name person on the committee that received notices objecting to the fact that they did not have 24 hours prior to the hearing to complete the review. I believe this report was transmitted to them yesterday at 4 o'clock. 4:20.
It was emailed a little bit before 5 o'clock. I'm sorry, 4:29. You're right, 4:29.
So Commissioners, at the moment, we're a couple of hours short.
All right, unless they're waiving, there's no
Mr. Hale, will you waive it?
No, I wasn't, I'm down by 28 signatures, and I didn't have an opportunity to review it. Today is also a Jewish fast day, and I'm just very weak for this.
For the record, Gene Baradilli for the objector. Good afternoon, everyone. I do have one issue to bring up that may clear up the whole signature issue totally, and if I could be heard on that, and then if they want to wait the extra hours, I can definitely hang around.
Steve, can we do that if he's not waiving, even address anything?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Unless you waive, what my suggestion is to designate a subcommittee to hear this at 4:30.
I'm asking if we could see it here at the next meeting.
No, it's not gonna be the next meeting.
there's no way that, I mean, 5 o'clock is when, or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock when it's ready. The fast started 8 o'clock. I could not be at the Board of Elections. I'm not allowed to sit on a chair today until afternoon, okay? I'm not, it's a period where it's worse than the Holocaust. This is anniversary worse than the Holocaust, where billions of Jewish people died today, okay? So I'm asking, please respect the observance.
Commissioners, if I could just be heard on one point that may clear all this up, I just wanted to bring it to the board, and then I'll live with whatever decision the board would make regarding Mr. Haon's application. I just wanted to bring up that part of the specifications of objection included an objection to the address for the first named member on the committee to receive notices, Mr. Boris Pincus, that had an incorrect apartment number on it. And I would just like to submit to the board U.S. Postal Service publication number 213 that states that a secondary address unit designated, such as an apartment or a suite, are required to be printed on the mail piece to address locations concerning secondary unit designators. So when they print on the petitions that he lives at a different apartment than he actually lives at, that according to his registration, that would be a prima facie defect that would require a printer's error affidavit, in my opinion. I understand from my conversation with Mr. Richmond that it is board policy that an apartment number would not be considered such a defect. But given this publication that is done by the public agency that is tasked with delivering the mail, and given that we had to send the specification of objections to 2 different addresses, which you have copies of our certified mail receipts, I ask that the report be amended to show 0 signatures valid.
Mr. Richmond, what's the procedure with respect to this clerk's report and the notice that we need, not the notice, but the timing in order to get the ballots in order for the military, for the affidavits?
Commissioner, the military is in the process, I guess, of being mailed. The absentees will be prepared. This would impact on the preparation of the election day ballots. Mr. Sandy's going to confirm, but I believe we were hoping for the beginning of next week to begin building the ballots. As you know, then there's a time-consuming process, and then we have to do the full range of testing. So we were hoping, at least, to conclude the hearings today, so that in absent court action, we would have a ballot built in these counties.
And I just want to point out to the commissioners that I am willing to wait until after 4:30 to stay around here and hear this matter out.
Well, if he's not waiting, I mean, we have no choice. But
To wait for that. But Commissioners, you do have the discretion to say that we'll do it at the 24-hour mark, and they have to have the next hour and a half to try to find this 28 signatures.
When is the next commissioner meeting?
It's next week. Tuesday. That's the problem. Is there a motion to,
Is there a way perhaps we could set it up with the subcommittee of the Brooklyn Commissioners and maybe have it on another day, perhaps
Thursday?
Thursday? Would
Yes.
that be or Friday earlier than?
Friday's fine too.
Should be available.
What if I sit in on, I may be able to be here Thursday.
Okay, well, could you make Thursday? All right, would you, Mr. Biridelli, we're not gonna do this without you. Would you be available Thursday at some point?
I would be available Thursday, probably in later afternoon, probably after 2 p.m.
That's fine.
If that is all right with the commissioners, but I would like to just have some sort of decision on the point that I had brought up regarding the secondary address designation.
you can't rule on any point because he's not waiting, so he hasn't had the opportunity to respond.
Okay, but that can be reserved for
Yes,
Thursday at 2
it's
p.m.?
Yes.
That's fine then.
So
Thursday, 2 p.m.?
Thursday, 2 p.m.
Yes.
And that's going to be in Brooklyn, or is that going to be here?
I'm going to be at 346 Brooklyn. So if we could do it here.
Here.
That's fine. Thank you for your service. We'll meet here.
I'll second Commissioner Dean's motion, designating a subcommittee consisting of Maria Costello and Sami Shimori to hear this matter on Thursday at 2 o'clock at this building.
Just a point of clarification, will then the entire board have to confirm that committee report, or is that the final decision?
They have the authority to act on behalf of the full board.
Very good. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
All right, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Spec 135 is scheduled for Thursday, August 7th at 2 p.m. By the designated Commissioners Committee of Commissioner Moon and Commissioner Costello. Spec number 136 and 138, Democratic Party, objection by Sharon Fuchs and Hessel Klein to the opportunity of the ballot petition for member of the Assembly in the 48th Assembly District. Clerk's report, 866 signatures submitted, 602 invalid, 264 valid, 500 are required to qualify.
Appearances?
Joseph Leon for the objector. Sharon Fuchs.
Good afternoon, Marion Conde of Conde and Glazer. Represent the Conservative Committee to receive notices in the 48th District.
No, you're the Conservative Party, not the Democratic?
Also Democrat.
Democrat, she has both. She has
That's
both?
right.
Okay. Yeah, it's two separate petitions, two separate numbers.
Which one are we doing now?
The Democratic one.
136,
136, 138.
You have
What the
notices,
object
by the way?
is, we have the objective, your short signatures, what do you have to say?
We'll concede that they're off the ballot.
Do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Mr. Objector?
I have nothing to add.
Move the close report. Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries.
Clerk's report is adopted. The opportunity to ballot for 48th Assembly District Democratic primary will not be on the ballot. Spec numbers 137 and 139. Clerk's report for the Conservative Party, OTV petition for member of the Assembly 45th District. The objections, Israel Britton and Sharon Fuchs. 45th or 48th?
Joseph Leon for the objector, Israel Baton.
Commissioners, one of the specific objection cover sheet states 45th Assembly District, and they refer to the board that the objector claims the petition cover sheet does not match the petition candidate information, claims the ID numbers were requested for a Republican election, and the objectors claim that no votes were properly identified by notaries. And so the question becomes as to which district this appears. Apparently, the objection cover sheet is the 45th Assembly District. However, the petition is the 48th Assembly District. Commissioner, the rule does require that the vote is set forth on the spec cover sheet. The correct, I believe, when we get the exact language.
So specs are no good.
It may be.
You need something legal or?
It has to be the candidate in the public office to which the petition objection is addressed. If there's no candidate, it has to be clearly stated in the public office, and it appears to be the wrong district.
Did you read the specs?
Can we have the spec, please, and the petition?
May I say something?
Yes.
The candidate, the person being the candidate is going to be either the first person on the committee to receive notices, or the person being the candidate is going to be the person who ordered the identification numbers according to the rules. Ordinance. And the candidate was written on the cover sheet.
That's correct.
Commissioners, volume 1961, which the spec call for, is an OTV petition for member of the Assembly Independence Party of the 46th District.
Not the Republican Party.
And, or conservative, I believe. And petition 1962, which is on the spec cover sheet, relates to the Independence Party, also for the 46th Assembly District.
To the wrong districts and wrong parties?
This is the 46th, they say that this is the 46th here as well.
No, I don't think, I think there's a confusion.
137, we need
Oh, wrong, they gave me the wrong
139,
one.
please.
The spec number 137, 139, and volume 1965. Commissioners, volume 1965 is the OTB for member of the Assembly in the 48th Assembly District. The objections relate to the member of the Assembly, 45th Assembly District, written on the cover sheet.
What's the candidate's name?
Well, that's it.
No, there's a candidate's name on the cover sheet.
Well, it's not the, it's not, it should, this is not, it should be listed as the candidate's name is none, because it's OTB.
But the rule, I think the rules H4 says that whoever is on the first committee to fill vacancies is deemed the candidate for the purpose of these rules.
Sorry, H, what did you say?
I think it's H4. I don't have the rule in front of me. If I have it, I can find it faster. It's not an H4. It's in the rule. Can I borrow a rule book from somebody? I'm sorry.
Commissioners, G3, if the objection is directed to a petition or for opportunity of the ballot, the objection shall identify the public office or party position and the petition volume identification number. So the specification of objection clearly sets forth here the 45th Assembly District for the independents, conservative party, I should say. And do you have the generals? And there's nothing, Commissioners, else in the rules about who you serve. And Mr. Graves informs me that the specifications do not match the general. The general had the correct district.
On one of them, it does not. The other one, it does.
On both, KG 137 and 139, it says 45th Assembly District.
Oh.
In both.
So the specs are not.
So it looks like, Commissioners, the specs are not in conformance with our rules.
I move that the clerk's report be dismissed as the specifications are not in compliance with our rules.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries.
Spec numbers 137 and 139 are dismissed. The OTB petition remains on the ballot. Commissioners, that concludes both the designated petition hearings and the opportunity to ballot petition hearings.
Except for the one that's. Right, but she wasn't handled at the time as a party, so technically she's still a valid objector.
They're ready to hear 133. They're ready to hear 133. We have
She still has it.
The second call is 97 and 98, right? The first recall is 97 and 98. That's Sharon Chair and the phone with Baronel. That's Riley. That's the one that's ready. Commissioners, my understanding is we're ready for the second call on the amended clerk's reports 97 and 98, Republican Party, objections by Chitteret and Fung to the petition of Joseph Barinello for member of the Assembly, 47th Assembly District. Do we have an updated clerk's report?
Apparently there's an objection to the number of signatures that we counted, and our clerks are counting it now.
No, we're not.
Who's
already?
That's the impression. I was given
Sorry,
How about the Independence Party objection of slavery?
Did you have a premature objection?
Recalling OTP spec number 133. Objections of the entry to the petition of the OTP petition for member of the Assembly in the 46th AD.
Oh, yes. She will be purged as of midnight tonight. She did receive a intent to cancel notice.
In July.
Well, July, it goes into our system. We cannot cancel a vote. We couldn't cancel any voters till after the federal election. By law, you have to have a 90-day window. So the letters are sent out, were sent out July 21st. They have 14 days to respond. If they don't, as of today, midnight, she'll be purged.
So Steve, my question is this, at the time that this was filed, she technically is an active voter until tonight. So what?
Until we act. Yeah.
Right, until we act, so.
So we may receive something in the mail from her today.
No, there's no, yesterday was 14 days. She's purged. We do the purges after 5 o'clock because people are working the system. So she had until yesterday to respond. As of yesterday, she did not respond. She's on the list to be purged. We will not purge until after business hours, so.
She will be purged, and then that's our cutoff for the 90 days prior to the general as well, because you can't purge people within 90 days of a federal election. So
as of
we have a
today,
group
the
of
day
folks,
the
and she's in
hearing,
that group of
she's not a
folks.
registered voter.
But as of the when she filed that, she was.
However, the primary is not until September 9th, so she will not be a registered voter and therefore lack standing in the own primary, which she claims to be eligible and have standing to object in.
It seems to me that as of today, and effective as of midnight last night, the person is no longer eligible. The person was eligible at the time they filed the objection, but not now. I think that the general rule is, for purposes of objections, you have to be sure to do it exactly right. And I think that this sort of falls in the middle, and I think we ought to opt on the side of letting the people decide whether they want to have somebody running on this line or not. And so I would think it's appropriate to dismiss the objection, because the voter, as of today, is not a registered voter. Today's the hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries.
Spec number 133 is dismissed. The OTB remains on the ballot. So the only thing we're waiting for is Mr. President, do you want to convene the board of canvassers while we wait for them to recalculate?
Yes.
Want to recess the hearing on the last step? Brooklyn is recalculating to see if it's 427 or 428 total signatures.
They're inside, they're over there.
Behind you, Tommy.
Okay, I'm coming, thank you. Yeah, I've just been told by the clerks at the Brooklyn office that the number of signatures in total on the petition is 427. That was the only issue at hand, was whether there was 427 or 428 total signatures on the petition, on the clerk's report.
Is that the number that, are those the numbers that we kind of agree on?
That's the number that the clerks agreed on, yes.
All right, so we have to hear from Mr. Feldman.
Yes.
We have two commissioners that need to vote.
Like 97 and 98.
Now they're going to announce the rework, yes. Yes, they're going to give you the staff just, yeah, the chief and deputy, I think, speak on the revised numbers. What the starting point has been agreed to be 427.
Let's recess, we'll second call that, let's just do our state.
All right, I move we convene the Board of Canvassers.
Is there a second? All in favor? Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries.
We're gonna come back to you guys. Sorry, they don't have the copies yet to circulate. So we're gonna have the Board of Canvassers take out their erasers, and then we'll call you back. Hopefully it'll be done by then.
Pursuant to the provisions of Title II of Article 9 of the New York State Election Law, specifically Section 9204, I now call the meeting of the Board of Canvassers of the City of New York to order for the purposes of recertifying the recanvass of votes cast on June 24, 2014 in the Democratic Federal Office primary election in the County of New York. Okay. To serve as a Democratic member of the canvassing board, I hereby designate Commissioner Maria Gustella, who is acting as a Democratic Commissioner for New York County, to serve for me today at today's meeting. I would ask the Secretary Michelle to designate Commissioner Frederick Humane, the Republican Commissioner for New York County, to serve with him for today's meeting. So designated. It's my understanding that the chief clerk and deputy chief clerk of Manhattan and their staff have prepared and signed a revised, with capital letters, statement and return of canvass for the Democratic and Party federal office primary election conducted in New York County portion of the 13th Congressional District on June 24th, 2014. I would ask that they present them to the canvassing board for review and approval.
Gregory Lehman, Chief Clerk.
Alan Shulkin, Deputy.
We presented to you, each of you has in your materials our written report. If you'll allow me, I'll summarize it for you.
Oh, can you, are you referring to this?
Yes, sir.
Can you read that?
Sure. Report on recertifying the results of the June 24th federal primary election, 13th Congressional District, 34th ED, 68th AD, and 8th ED of the 72nd ED, New York County, August 5th. Chief Clerk and Deputy Chief Clerk from Manhattan submit this report to fully set forth the facts, circumstances, findings, and conclusions which require us to request that the Board of Canvassers recertify the results of the June 24, 2014 primary from Manhattan, since our initial submission does not accurately and correctly reflect all the votes cast in that election in New York County. Following the June 24, 2014 federal primary, the staff of the Manhattan office conducted a routine and systematic comparison of the number of ballots cast in each election district with the number of voters who signed in each election district's poll list book. Comparison began on July 8, 2014, following submission of the Manhattan certified statement and return of canvass for the aforementioned primary, and was substantially completed by July 15, 2014. In election district 34 of 68, there were 97 ballots cast as read on election night, and S-Elect showed 43 ballots cast. In election district 8 of 72, there were 161 ballots cast as read on election night. S-Elect showed 0 ballots cast. Further research by the Chief Clerk and Deputy Chief Clerk determined the clerical error caused the incorrect vote counts to be entered into S-Elect. The error occurred on July 2nd, 2014, when a bipartisan team of 2 supervisors, Stephen Lopez and Cheryl Logan, both election management system supervisors, were manually completing partial vote tallies in the S-Elect system. The incorrect results were entered into the statement and return of canvass, which the Chief and Deputy presented to the Commissioners as accurate and complete, accurate and correct. In accordance with the policies and procedures adopted by the Commissioners of Elections in the City of New York, unresolved discrepancies are ultimately resolved by utilizing 2 bipartisan teams to manually tally the election day ballots cast in all scanners for the election districts in question and attest to their findings. The manual tallies were conducted on July 2014 by the following Manhattan staff members. Their names are listed. I think I can keep going?
No.
Okay. Thereafter, pursuant to the instruction of executive management, we, the Manhattan Chief and Deputy, requested MIS unlock the S-Select system, and the corrected data for these 2 EDs was inputted and verified by the Chief Clerk and the Deputy Chief Clerk. Commissioners should note, the corrected reporting of votes did not affect the overall outcome of the one contest that appeared on the ballot, which was the Democratic primary for Member of Congress for the 13th Congressional District in each of these 2 election districts.
In accordance with the board's practice, I will not ask for the record a series of questions with respect to the revised return of canvass that has been presented by the Manhattan staff today. Do the Manhattan Chief Clerk and Deputy Chief Clerk confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
For this revised report, are there any additional discrepancies to report to the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
As a result of the revised report, does the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and central count scanners required by section 9-211 of the New York State election law have to be revised?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Based on the reports that we have received today, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Canvassers recertify the statement of return of canvass for the Democratic Party federal office primary election conducted on the 13th Congressional District within New York County on June 24th, 2014. Is there a motion?
So moved. But also, it's going to affect the total for the whole, all right, so moved.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Yanes, seconded by Commissioner Costello. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? The revised statement and return of canvass prepared by the Manhattan staff of the Board of Elections is adopted unanimously. Is there a motion to approve and adopt the revised recap statement and return of canvass for the Democratic Party federal office primary election conducted on June 24, 2014 for the 13th Congressional District, which includes portions of both New York and Bronx counties within the city of New York?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Maine, seconded by Commissioner Costello. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is adopted, and the revised recap statement and returns of canvass for the Democratic Party federal office primary election conducted on June 24, 2014 for the 13th Congressional District is approved. Is there a motion to authorize the use of the commissioner's signature stamps as appropriate on each statement and return of canvass?
Very much so moved.
Made by Commissioner Maine and seconded by Commissioner Costello. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion is adopted. There being no further business to come before the Board of Canvassers in the City of New York, I would now entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Canvassers and to convene the weekly stated meeting of the Commissioners of Elections of the City of New York.
So moved.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion is adopted. The Board of Canvassers stand adjourned. Do you want to do the regular stated meeting, or do you want to finish the report?
Well, Commissioners, I believe the Chief and Deputy are ready to report on the revised clerk's report findings on specs 97 and 98. Just Mr. Deanna to give you the correct
Can we have the
numbers.
candidate and the objector stand up?
According to our clerks, the total number of signatures submitted for the candidate is 427. The total number of invalid signatures is 22. The total number of valid signatures is 405. The total number of signatures required is 408.
Susan Morrow, the objector.
Raymond Riley for the candidate.
Do you wish to add anything for the candidate?
I would. It would be possible to read aloud the ruling on the exceptions.
No.
Okay.
You were present between,
And they said they were going to run the final numbers over there and then share them.
that's just telling the numbers, that's not rulings on exceptions.
Okay.
Do you wish to add anything to the objector?
No.
I have objections to their rulings. I have disagreements with their rulings. If it's proper for me to proceed with those, or if their ruling is their ruling, then
Do you have the documentary backup?
I do. And it was all submitted to. It was all submitted with the list of exceptions.
Well, when they were making those rulings, were you present?
I was, and I had asked them to work by BSN numbers and look at the documentation, and they did not. They worked just off the addresses and continued to go. So therefore, none of the evidence that I submitted was worked or ruled by either of the clerks during the review. They went off the petition, they went off the original objection sheet, and they moved on.
Can you have the chief and deputy answer that?
I think the clerk should have considered the information that was set forth in the exceptions. I think they should be reworked.
Right, there's just 10 or 12 of them. Could you direct the clerks to go do it right?
Perhaps maybe a supervisor should do it, not just the clerks? Or two teams on each side? I mean,
Shouldn't be that hard or that long, because they have
Do you
to
want to
clear
pull
it.
up VSN numbers?
Yeah, I would love to pull up VSN numbers. That's what I attempted to do when I was in the room before.
Could you just go get the list, one of you, please, from what he submitted?
All right, what's the process that's gonna be done now?
I'm gonna get two separate people in here. Okay, just get
Sorry.
two of
So
them.
we did, Steve, can you just clarify as to what we're actually gonna do in that room? I don't wanna come back a fourth time.
The clerks going in should be looking at the exception report given by the candidate and making a finding whether or not the information contained in the exception report does relate to the petition and has the correct information.
That includes looking at any evidence that either the
Yes.
candidate or the objector has, correct?
Correct. But right now, we're only looking for one exception, yes.
Right.
But they both should be there to see
In
all
theory.
the evidence and what the basis of their ruling.
And there's no new objections, correct?
No, only what's on the exception list that is in support of what should be an original objection. Cool. You want to do the regular meeting, do the first?
Yes,
Standing?
yes.
Want to go back in?
I'd like to have David and Rebecca.
Keys and David Adamorno.
To do it. They're not the ones that did it before.
I don't, was anyone who did it before?
No.
No.
And you guys are supervising it?
We'll go with some. Yeah.
All right, call to order the regular board meeting. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda? Steve, you can take a roll call?
What?
You want me to take a roll call?
No, well, if you want to put on the tape, yes. That's sufficient for that.
All right, my name is Jose Araujo. I'm the president and Highway Commissioner. I call to order the commissioners' regular meeting. Can I have all the commissioners, starting with my left, introduce themselves?
Serena Richmond, County
Republican.
Michael Rendino, D, Bronx County.
Simon Schuster, Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Michael Michelle, Queens Republic.
Julie Dan, Brooklyn Democrat. Welcome, everyone.
Marie Marcel, Richmond Democrat.
Executive staff.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Nina Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Steve Dane, Brooklyn.
And Steve Richmond, General Counsel.
All right, does anyone have anything to add to the agenda?
There's one other item that's not listed here under my presentation, which Mr. Sadi and I would discuss with the commissioners regarding ballots and the timing of the building permits, which came up shortly before the meeting.
All right, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from July 29, 2014? Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. The minutes are adopted. Please make sure that they're on the website. Mike Ryan.
Yes, we attended some of us attended the entire conference, and others of us attended portions of the conference with respect to the hearings going on last week. But the state conference was attended by the following members of staff: the Deputy Executive Director, Dawn Sandow, Administrative Manager, Pamela Perkins, John O'Grady, Steve Ferguson, John Nordis, Raphael Savino, and the commissioners were represented ably by Commissioner Guastella. Our staff, notably John Nordis and John O'Grady, made a presentation with respect to the technology advancements that we've made here at the Board of Elections, including Vicky and the enhancements that we've made to the election management system. The presentations were well received, and there were two audible gasps in the audience when Mr. Norris was giving his presentation. One was when he announced to the remainder of the state how many poll workers that we employ on election day. They were clearly very surprised by the extent that we have to deal with these things. And the second was when we reported the timing of the results on election night that were from the one poll site where we were able to upload results directly from the poll site at 9:04 and 9:06 respectively with the two sticks. And that caused a lot of buzz, and folks came around and wanted to know what we did and how we were able to accomplish that. And as well as the kiosk seemed to get a lot of attention.
Especially from Doug Hill.
Yes, Commissioner Kellner of the State Board was very excited about the kiosk, and it would be an overstatement to say that he had to be physically restrained from participating in the demonstration, but certainly he was actively participating. But I think his excitement is well placed. The technology that the kiosk, the technology capability that the kiosk has, presents some degree of excitement for how we can do things moving forward, irrespective of the form that takes. I mean, there's different ways that we could probably accomplish the same goal, and that hasn't been finalized yet. But electronic check-in, the uploading of the vote, of the results, the enhanced communication with the voters, and the ability to print the step-by-step directions for folks. That all presents, exciting, cutting-edge developments, and they were developed by our staff in-house, and might I say, free from vendor cost, which is something that is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with technology. There were work groups with respect to ADA compliance issues, and as we all know, that is a big issue, and it's going to be a big issue moving forward, and it's going to require a lot of cooperation amongst all of the stakeholders, not only the city government, but the various groups that advocate on behalf of folks with limited mobility or other types of issues. And we want to, the goal ultimately has to be that we will allow everyone to vote independently. And it's certainly a big task in the city of New York, but not one that we're shying away from. And the other breakout groups were poll worker training, which we actively participated in as well. I don't know if either...
That was a good one, because
Right.
it was more of a roundtable discussion, and a lot of the tests, people brought in their own tests for their counties and their poll worker manuals, and there was a lot of information back and forth, so I think we gained a lot. They gained a lot as well from our information, so.
And I don't know if Commissioner Costello or Ms. Perkins have anything to add, but that was pretty much the summary, especially if you laid out what I want. Okay. All right, I'm going to move to my now item 5C, and I'll come back to the poll book. We have Mr. Sadi here, and we have an issue that we just want to bring to the Commissioner's attention, that there's nothing that we can do about it right this minute, but it's certainly something that needs to be brought to the Commissioner's attention publicly. We have an issue with the building of the ballots. There is litigation presently associated with the governor's race. Because it's associated with the governor's race, it affects the entire ballot. It's not limited to one district, and that litigation is not scheduled to be heard until the 7th. Our quote-unquote drop-dead date, the date by which we have to start building the ballots or run the risk of not being able to finish the test decking and everything, is August the 11th. So we're cutting it very close. Now, with the cooperation of the ballot committee and the ballot committee's direction, the staff has got a pretty good head start on it because we have a format of the ballot bill, but we can't finalize it, and at some point, very quickly, we'll see what's happening on Thursday with the litigation, but we'll have to make a determination moving forward. This will not affect the absentees in the militaries. They're going to go on their own course.
Military.
But, right, but in terms of the election day ballot, this is going to be an issue.
Litigation.
Presidency.
Yes, too. In respect to the candidacy of Zephyr Teachout, 2 citizen objectives claim that she doesn't meet the constitutional requirement of 5-year continuous residence in the state of New York. Martin Connor, representing the objectives, claims he has ironclad proof. We were happy to, this was the original hearing was last Monday. We were there. Mr. Mandelko, representing Ms. Teachout, says he has ironclad proof showing that she's here for 5 years. It's been assigned to Justice Walker in Kings County. They have issued subpoenas for various people to show up and testify, including persons from out of state. The hearing is supposed to commence on Thursday.
Are you appearing at the hearing?
No.
Is somehow the court being notified of our deadlines?
Well, the state board is appearing, and I assume, based on my conversation today with the co-counsel, that they're going to share that information, but the court is aware of that. They are aware that the appellate division has scheduled hearings for the appeal, which in all likelihood will ensue for the following week, and the Court of Appeals has scheduled their hearings for the last week in August.
Is there any way we can communicate with the court and just let them know of our issue with the ballot later?
We're not a party to it, but I think if you want, I think maybe Mr. Ryan will communicate directly to the state board.
Yes, I will do that.
And in addition, this morning, the state board was served by papers to restore the candidates. The state board is removed from the ballot. Sam Sloan for governor, Neil Grimaldi for attorney general, and Ken Edwards, lieutenant governor controller. I think, again, they're raising a novel legal issue, again, challenging the constitutionality of the requirement that you need the 15,000 signatures. But as the state board said in its email, we don't know what the court's going to do. They only have approximately 5,000 signatures.
There was no objection on those.
No, they did. They were removed prima facie by the state board, and they're challenging whether or not whether the weight test is constitutional.
The litigation pertaining to the residency issue, it seems that there would be two outcomes to that litigation. Is there a chance, or is it too onerous to test both ballots and both outcomes? Or is that?
Yeah, can we prepare the ballot with and without?
We actually discussed that, and I got an explanation from staff earlier today, but I would leave the technical aspects of that to be, well, Mr. Sadi for the moment, and if need be, we can get Mr. Norris down here. Oh, he's here? Okay, Mr. Norris, can you please step up? I didn't see you.
Hiding behind the phone.
I can't see through the podium, the post open.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. As it is to build the ballot, have it proofed, produced, and tested on all the equipment, just for one version, our cutoff date would have been the 11th. It basically takes a week to do the building of the ballot, the proofing, and the printing, and then another 2 weeks to actually test all of the 4,000 or so voting machines and 1,200 and change BMDs that go out the door for the election. To do two different versions would basically be asking the staff to do all of that work twice, to build a ballot twice, have two different versions of the system set up and tested. We'd have had to have started that probably like a week ago in order to have achieved both those outcomes and still have the equipment ready to go out for the election.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where the process doesn't marry up with what we need to accomplish in order to get the machines here.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it affects every ballot. If it was an assembly seat, we could do all the other assembly seats. And
Right,
just
every single
omit
ballot.
the one that's in controversy. But this apparently covers every ballot in the whole city.
Correct, and Commissioner Humane, you hit the nail on the head, that's the problem. You know, when we have these issues that are related to contests that involve smaller portions, it's one thing, but when it's, you know, it's the top dog in the state, it's quite another matter.
Right, but now it's in litigation. How far is the litigation gonna go? What's the drop dead date for litigation? State Supreme Court, I'm assuming it's going all the way.
Right.
So how long is that expedited and what?
It is expedited, but the appellate division has scheduled hearings for the following week, I believe. They're gonna hear the appellate division cases, I forget, the first department is on the 19th, it's the 19th and 20th, for one to the first department, one to the second, in August. The Court of Appeals is scheduled to hear the cases, or motion to leave to appeal, I believe, on the 26th.
So, you know it and I know it, it's gonna go all the way to the 26th. So
Well,
we have to come up
I
with
believe it'll
power.
go to the appellate division, whether or not you get it to settle up. If history of the past, if we know it, the Court of Appeals usually declines to take electional cases, but given the fact that it involves a candidate for governor, there may be other considerations.
So let's say if it went all the way, it's gonna be done, decided on the 27th.
27th or the 28th.
Does the staff have any recommendation, if it goes that far, what we can do to complete all of it?
Commissioner, the fact would be is that if the ballot is set up with the candidate on, and then it's removed, any votes cast by that under the election will not count for the candidate. The problem you may have is people will be confused because of the candidate appearing there without, and the question then, John, is can we print ballots differently and just leave that space blank? In other words, set it up in the system so that there's a place for the oval to be read.
So what about leaving them on the ballot and just notifying the public as best as we can that this individual is not on the ballot?
But keep in mind, there's a couple of concerns here, right? I mean, there's folks that are fighting to get somebody off the ballot. So if the immediate decision prior to any determination in court is made by the board, I mean, I wouldn't recommend jumping ahead of the courts and making a decision to keep somebody on the ballot until at least Thursday, the court has an opportunity to be heard. Because then what you're doing is you're giving.
Thursday is the beginning of the hearing.
No, I understand, but we'll know something on Thursday. Right now, we know
I'm
nothing.
taking testimony on Thursday.
Steve, I'm a lawyer too, okay? Something's gonna happen on Thursday. Either nothing, right? But that's still something, right? If there's no action is an action, as far as we're concerned. It'll guide us one way or the other. And at some point, there may be a conclusion on Thursday. Maybe they'll go all day. Who knows how much time the judge is gonna give to it, right? Given the level. So we don't know anything until Thursday is the bottom line, all right? And once we get some guidance from the court, one way or the other, whether it's Thursday or Friday, we'll have a better understanding of what we're doing. My simple point is, if there's party A looking to knock somebody off the ballot, right? Party B looking to stay on the ballot, one way or the other, if we jump the gun without allowing the court to take some action, we're giving the challenging party on either side their remedy without the courts being involved in the biggest election district in the state. I don't think that's a spot the commissioners want to find themselves in. I only get to make a recommendation, so I don't have to vote on it.
No.
So, but if someone's going to get knocked off after the court process, I don't think the board wants to be in a position of putting them on.
No, but if they're knocked off on one court and then they're put on the other, so you still
Well,
have to make a decision.
But that's a different situation then, right? Because now, at that point, you're making a decision with court authority. It's an informed decision with some authority to rely on.
Supreme Court is when?
The hearings begin on Thursday, the
Okay,
trial.
so I think that, if it's the 11th, I guess depending on what the Supreme Court rules, then we gotta make our move after that.
Mm-hmm.
The deadline for the Supreme Court to rule is a week from Friday, based on the appellate.
Right, but I spoke to Kim Galvin, and they're hoping that, they can move things along in state court as quickly as possible, given the seriousness of the situation.
But I would say we still have to try to figure something out if it goes longer, so I think staff should come up with some kind of recommendation of what we should do. That's all I'm asking.
There's only 2 candidates running for governor? No, Randy Credico is on the ballot. There's definitely a Democratic governor's primary. Cuomo and Credico are on the ballot, there was no judicial challenge. And there's a lieutenant governor's contest as well, with no challenge.
So if the court rules to throw off and we throw off,
and then they get it changed. We got ballots that aren't good, we're better off playing it safe and having ballots with everybody on it, and then invalidating the votes. Especially as a public.
Tommy, did you want to say something? Because I think you had this meeting.
Yeah, no, and I think Commissioner Rentino just really covered what I was going to say. There are a couple different issues at hand. Mr. Rohan pointed out, and I personally agree with, but if he doesn't have a vote, I certainly don't, but that I do think that at least knowing from the Supreme Court the direction in which this is headed will help a lot in making this decision, if it's to go to Monday to make a decision. But going further down the line, there is far greater peril for the board to print a ballot with a candidate off that may come on than to print a ballot with a candidate on that may come off.
I agree. My simple point was, if we make that decision right this minute.
Yes.
We're jumping the line.
Well, is she on at this moment?
Yes, she is.
She's on them, so we're making it based on the information we have, which is that she's on.
The state board certified her as a candidate. They issued the certification with her own.
So the information we have now is that she's on.
So
But
the
we're
extra
also
2
aware of
days,
court challenges.
assuming we heed Mr. Ryan's call and wait until Thursday, will that necessary?
At this point, no.
Okay,
Yeah, but that's to make the ballots, but you plan, somebody said you wanted to have a week to do that, now you're having less than a week to do it, can you still do it?
The original plan we put in place was to begin building the ballots on the 11th. So if we were to wait until then, there would not be any.
All right, we're not off schedule.
We would
All right,
not.
so I would move that we plan on commencing the building of the ballots at the end of the hearing on the 11th.
court.
Based on what information.
That is, without, yeah.
I mean, but if they
So,
throw a
basically
wall.
going on.
Worst case scenario,
If you let me finish, then maybe we'll have some answers to at least, so I think we should, wait till the 11th, see if we hear anything from the court. If we don't, then we should start commencing the building of the ballot with the candidate on. And then if we hear something subsequent to that, we can change it. But based on what everybody's saying, and unfortunately, I think common sense, it makes sense to have the person on, and then worst to worst, we could put a pasty or something on it to cover it up, so.
They work a bit differently, yeah.
In the old days,
It would have to be, I'm just speculating, but it would have to be some sort of notice that was put out to poll sites and to voters to say that candidates.
alright, so
We'll
that's.
have a mailing, don't we do a mailing in August, the end of August?
It's our day
Oh, it's out there.
Alright, so that's my motion.
All right, just one second.
Decision made with the change, are you saying that if they come up with a decision to leave the off, that we're gonna do that? Is that what the motion's saying, or we're gonna make a decision that day, and how are we gonna make that decision
Well,
that
I
day?
think what we need to do is fix a cutoff. So while the 11th may seem arbitrary, it would have the benefit of some court involvement. So what we're gonna do is plan to do it as we plan, based on the best information that we have. So as it stands now, the person's on the ballot, and that's how we should do it. If we hear something to the contrary, we'll change it. But I think, you know, we need to have a cutoff point, and seems to me wiser heads than me are saying that should be August 11th, so that's why I picked that date. But
Before we take a Paul's motion, Commissioner
We
Casale?
can vote on, we could vote on his motion, something different.
Oh, so then we're gonna, how are we gonna decide on the 11th? Based on the,
well, we're gonna go with what we have. If we get a court order telling us not to, then we're gonna.
then the motion is then we're gonna remove them?
I think the motion is, whatever is lawfully in place on that day. So right now, the only thing in place is the state court certification. You have a justice in the Supreme Court issuing an order by then removing her. That's the current state, and then there will be a notice of appeal. The appellate division will act on the following week at the earliest, because they're scheduled to hear the hearings on that Tuesday and Wednesday.
I was just speaking with John, I'm sorry, and the two of us were talking about this. And I don't know if it helps at all to make a decision here, but we both think that it would, we're comfortable with saying that if it's preferable to wait until the 12th, till the stated meeting of the commissioners, to bring this back up, to discuss, and then have some clarity, so we could all discuss it as a group to the commissioners, and then we can make an informed decision, that we both be comfortable with that, and we'll still be comfortable with meeting the deadlines that we've.
So it's a 24-hour delay?
Correct.
All right,
And which we feel we can make up other ways.
Okay. All right, and then that works. Good for it?
So we'll wait till response.
As long as staff says.
That's what they just
Until the
said,
next
they
day.
just said that
All
they
right.
would wait until the 12th, we're all back here.
Yes.
Are you withdraw the
All right.
motion? Mr. Commissioner, you mean you withdraw the motion? It wasn't seconded.
We'll just amend it to say the 12th at 1:30 or thereabouts, rather than get the business on the 11th.
All right, is there a second on the
Second.
motion? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? Motion carried.
I just have a suggestion. Can you direct Mike Ryan to contact the judge's law secretary, just to make sure they know, not to, I wasn't gonna say dilly-dally, but to get the hearing going and not to take too many breaks and not to adjourn to the next day, that you have to realize the importance of us, of them completing the proceedings.
Both sides just make the trial go between 3 and 4 days.
Right, but that's not what I'm asking.
Right, no,
I just wanna make sure
agree.
the judge is aware, because, as you know, okay, I've done a trial and it could take a week and it could take a month. So,
All right,
so I said, he actually, I would feel comfortable if he actually spoke to the law secretary.
All right, the motion's been made, it's been seconded by Commissioner Castorino. Motion carries. Make sure you have the phone number,
Okay.
the right number.
I just maybe you should write a letter to the court and copy the parties, just advising them rather than calling the law secretary. Because you're not supposed to do ex parte.
We're not a
Yeah,
part of
probably not. just so they don't take unnecessary breaks or 2-hour lunches and things like that, which happens all the time.
I think Mike Ryan will make a phone call, maybe follow up with a letter.
Yes.
Just whatever is appropriate under the procedure.
And, you know, I'll make that inquiry of the court's, court attorney as to what the appropriate method of communication will be, whether a conversation suffices or
Just issue
writing
it
is.
right, that's all.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that. That's good sage advice once again, Commissioner.
Well, in the old days.
You want to go back to the court on hold?
Well, I actually have to go,
Changes?
I actually have to go back to item A again, because I neglected to mention that our own Commissioner Dent was reelected to the state executive board.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Now, this one will be brief. I only have one, because we just got the prototype back from the printer, but we have a tab poll book, all right? And it will be in use for the primary. In addition to the tab poll book, which these are just long pages, but it'll have the offset tabs the way it's supposed to. This is just the mock-up from the printer. It also lists the numeric age of the voter. So next to the date of birth, it has, in this particular case, the date of birth of 1/20/1994, age 20, which should make it easier for the poll workers when they're looking at things. And the other thing that we did in an effort to go green, because we're using a different type of binding, we're going with this metal spiral binding, it's front and back pages. So, right, but this will all be incorporated into the training, and when you flip the page, it will be easier for the poll workers, and it will also be easier for the borough offices when they're giving voter history, because now you'll have double pages that you can go down and
I
gun.
would recommend that you be careful when you put the tab on the bottom. Make sure that
The tab
you're
will be-
not going to be having more than one initial letter on a page.
No, the tab is going to be manually inserted in between the way it should have been done all the way along. We're really not breaking new ground. And I will say that I said at a staff meeting after a visit to the Manhattan warehouse, the VMF facility, I came across a poll book from 1928, and it had tabs. So this isn't exactly a new invention, what we're doing here. You know, although it's a substantial advancement for us, it really, for the rest of the world, it's you know, regular course of business.
Mr.
So,
Ryan, are the tabs double-sided?
The tabs are double-sided.
It might be a good
They may,
idea.
you know, like the.
But when they flip
like
when they flip the book over to get to the other side of the sheet, so they can
Right.
see the tab on both sides.
I'm not certain, because we only have the mock-up, which is a piece of paper, but it will be the offset tabs.
I just want to make that recommendation.
Okay. And I'll take it under advisement and see if it can be
Thank you
done.
so
I'm not
much.
certain, but if it can be accomplished, we will, you know. But that was, I just wanted the commissioners to be aware of the fact that it's being worked on, and it will be in place for the September run.
Mr. President,
Yes. Please step up.
I would like to address the board. I like this meeting. It's like when Doug Kellner was among you. It's lasted till 4:30. Instead of under Greg Sumas, they lasted 10 minutes. But before I begin, Mr. President, I might want to remark to Commissioner Humain, maybe the proper approach of the court is through the administrative judge who assigned the Paul Wootens of the world to the different boroughs. Let's see. I addressed this July body a month ago, and now I have the opportunity to address this August body today about something I had raised then, which I feel is an important or a very important issue, and that's the scanner tapes. When I said more than one, and of course, I think Commissioner Shamoon said, oh, there's plenty of time, and so on and so forth. I submit there's another issue which overrides that, whether to have time to copy down results. It's concerning the printing out of the number of scanner tapes at the closing. Of course, you know, in the morning you print, the scanners print out with something for accountability, you call it the zero tape. The zero tape. There's no issue, by the way, that the scanners have enough paper. At every election, you don't leave the old paper there, like when you had the write-in roll on the shoot machines that they were there for maybe 10 years. Nobody was writing in. But here, I understand that every time you put a scanner in, it gets a complete new register tape roll. So that's not an issue, that you don't have enough paper. Now, what I would like to bring to your attention, I don't have a copy of the law here, but someone must, is section 9-120, chapter 9 of section 124, subdivision 1 of the New York State election law. And that is that you have to print out one I guess the Republicans are more interested than the Democrats. Anyway, I'll proceed, and what the Democrats don't know will hurt them. You have to print out a register tape, a scanner tape, that according to the election law goes first, that is upon the wall. I'll just refer to it as upon the wall, but of course you can have people sitting on the floor and passing them around, or on a table on the side and looking at them. Doesn't matter. But when the PMD, whatever that means, premenstrual something, I don't know, but the USB flash drive is removed from the scanners and is to be sent ahead of the return of the canvas to the police precinct. You have to take that there to the police precinct for the unofficial returns that you want to get out to the public right away, being sent from the precinct down to here and then out on the web or to the media or what have you. That too, that flash drive does require a tape. And you can, and under the election law, I believe there's a section that refers to that the first tape that's printed out goes up on the wall. Well, you can't take that down and then put it with the flash drive and give it to the cops to bring over to their precinct for its transmission by your team at each precinct, because you have to have it on the wall. But you'll need another one to go with the flash drive to the precinct. In addition, you also have to have one stapled to the return of canvas. So in reality, you need 3. And your rules I don't think they speak to this properly. You have to have 3 of them. Now, I think the section is 102 that the first tape does go on the wall for public display and it stays there. And if that goes there, again, to iterate for the Democrats that you must then have another printout from the scanner of the tape. At the top there'll be a ballot accountability section. And so you'll need a second one to go with the flash drive and a third to be attached to the return of the canvas. Now, how much additional time will this take? Mr. Nordis could probably tell you under 5 minutes additional. That doesn't take long to do once you start that. Those scanners can print out as many copies as you need to the limit of the roll of that tape. But you only will need at least 3. You may have to have another one if something happens, it gets mangled or some ink doesn't come through. But it doesn't require more than 5 minutes. And we're not talking 5 minutes on scanner 1, 5 minutes on scanner 2. It's a total of 5 minutes and probably more likely 4 minutes.
Okay, you made your point. Mr. Ryan, have we looked at this issue?
Yes, and this issue was fully considered before we came to the commissioners and recommended a change in the procedure. We are going to print a summary tape, no longer election district by election district tape. It's
Correct.
going to be a summary tape which will have the results on it. It will go up on the wall. While it's going up on the wall, the poll workers will do their ballot reconciliation. While they're doing their ballot reconciliation, the folks will take the numbers, When they finish taking the numbers, they'll be asked to step out of the poll place so folks can finish up the rest of their work that they have to, clean up and everything. And then the poll workers will take that tape and staple it pursuant to the new statute to the return of canvas. And that's the return of canvas. The tape is now the return of canvas. I think that's the thing that's getting lost in the shuffle. In any event, we're no longer sending a tape to the police department. We're not legally required to do it, and we're not doing it. We're going to send the portable memory device, also known as a flash drive type device, to the police department for the uploading of the unofficial results. And that's where the unofficial results are going to come from. So, we're going to be complying with the law. We're going to do it more quickly. The hope is that we get the results out more quickly. But in addition to that, we have poll workers that already have a long day. So what we have done for them, hopefully, is reduce the amount of time that it takes for them to print out, and the way it started was 3 results tapes, election district by election district, which, Mr. Flax, I'm certain that you visited some of these busy election districts, and the tapes were all the way rolling across the floor at the end of the night when they were taped up onto the walls, because they're too long. And so we're making this change. Nothing is 100% written in stone. If it turns out that there's complaints about the way this is done, I'm certain we'll come back before the commissioners and revisit it. But this was done with due and careful consideration.
And so there'll be ample time for the people to get the information.
Absolutely.
And call it in, and it's a way of trying to improve the whole process for both the poll workers, the public, and the people at large who want information regarding the results.
What is so terrible about printing out a third one, and I'm not sure, maybe you can ask your lawyer, Mr. Richmond, is it so that you no longer have to, in the City of New York section of the law section I cited, that a copy of that tape has to go with the USB flash drive to the precinct? Mr. Ryan says no. I thought I read yes, and maybe Mr. Richmond I see has a copy of the lawyers, now your lawyers, who get $48,000 a year to do nothing and actually working. This is good. But what does the law require, and doesn't it supersede your rules and regulations? Because I remember reading they have a different procedure in Nassau County.
The law does trump our rules and regulations.
Yes. Sovereign immunity.
Well, no, it's not sovereign immunity.
That's how I like to look at it.
Statute trumping rules.
It says may. It says may. The statute that you referred to, that I looked at it, Mr. Flax, says may.
Well,
Not must.
you have a pooling of 3 lawyers here looking at it, and I would respectfully ask you, plural, if you'll ask them what they think.
Can we just resolve this at a later time?
What do you mean later? Because I want to be here when you resolve it.
Well, you will be here, because I'm going to direct that they speak to you after they finish reading, so we can just call back and finish with Brooklyn.
No, they should speak to you, and I will be here to hear it. I'm just talking on the protocol on this. And also, what we're talking about, especially Commissioner Shamoon, as he said all the time, remember, poll watchers can't be there after the close of polls, and they may be there as late as the inspectors are. I don't know why. And some of those inspectors may be very upset, but they want to get out of there. You always have one ED where the workers walk out at 9:15, 9:30 because they don't want to do the work. That happens every election in this city among the 26 to 30,000 poll workers. They just give up. They're not going to spend the time. You keep reducing the amount of work. Why don't you have them all now count the absentee ballots after the polls close? You used to do that. But now it's almost as if they want to leave immediately.
No, I think, Commissioner, it's a new section that was added in
Last year.
It was 2013.
Right, last year.
Which we've got to go, because the fact is that they normally talk about that you're going to send the memory device back with the return of canvas and everything else. Then there's a notwithstanding the preceding sentence. Each such such portable memory device from each ballot scanner with the corresponding result tape may be enclosed in a sealed container and transported prior to. So the question is,
It's being transported with a PMD form.
no, the point of the statute says is such portable memory device from each ballot scanner with the corresponding results tape may be sent. So if you're gonna send the PMD, it goes with the corresponding results tape, if we're gonna send it early. At least that's the way the first reading does. Right. Right, right. If we're not doing that together, then we don't leave, the PMD doesn't leave early, it stays, it goes back to the return of canvas in this section under 9124. The may is whether it's together, or at least it's conjunctive, that each such ballot scanner with the corresponding results.
Then if that's the case, which is why I disagree with you, and I disagree with you respectfully, Mr. Flax. The three of you sat at a meeting when we had this very discussion, and nobody said anything. So to say it now means somebody did not do their job when they were advising the agency and advising the commissions.
Mr. Ryan, with all due
No,
respect, we
I-
were not
that
given the
wasn't, excuse
opportunity
me,
to comment.
that was a statement. That was not a question for you. That was a statement to you. I wasn't asking or inviting a retort. You can't sit silently and say nothing and say that you didn't have an opportunity when we're sitting here now and you have an opportunity. Your mouth is open now, but it wasn't open months ago.
Mr. Ryan, please, there are honorable members of the bar here. May I submit that, why don't we just call it newly discovered evidence?
That's fine.
Yes, let's
But I read May as May.
let's just move on for
And
now.
shall.
We'll revisit this.
Workman's ready?
All right, there being no other business, I call back.
When will you revisit it, Mr. President? Today?
Probably next week. All right?
Well, that's sufficient time before September.
Is there a
Thank you.
motion to adjourn the commission, the regular commission meeting? Is there a second? All in favor, anybody opposed or abstaining? The motion carries. Let's call back the Brooklyn matter.
Respect number 97-1 and 98-1, Republican Party, objection of Chen et al. To the petition of Baronello, 47 AD, State Assembly.
Then we go, Buck by Buck. So we kept it in, he has his in the corner, and Brooklyn has theirs. There's Brooklyn.
She has it.
Who has
The
it?
deputy.
Where's the Bucks?
It's right here.
Okay, keep them in order, because we're gonna go one for one on the rule.
All right, so what are the new numbers?
This is the order.
So, I understand that the first one is volume 795, page 7, line 4, which was ruled as an NR, not registered. The clerks found that the voter Stanislaw Iwanicki is registered and that is now not as stated.
Okay, I asked if we could please do it in the order that it was given to the commissioners. We kept it in.
I'm sorry, okay.
Okay.
This first one is Gaetano Sorelli.
Yes, there.
We,
No, he hasn't.
we would like to refer that to the commissioners. The petition is signed Tana Sorelli, and the registration is Gaetana Sorelli. The voter is a Republican and resides at the address 58 Bay 10th Street, which is on the petition.
Can I see the petition? I have that.
This is number 6.
So I think that's good.
Just reviewing the documentation provided us, we see here a registration for Gaetana Corelli. She signed it Tana Corelli, which I believe is a variation of the first name, which has been acceptable by this board and by the courts, it's my understanding. Is that
Yes.
So is there a motion to accept this?
Did we hear a citation on that acceptance, Commissioner?
A citation on exception, no, you get our ruling on it.
No,
Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton changed his name, sir. I have both autographs.
Do you have the election law update, Supervisor? While we do that, that's the ruling. Is there a motion?
Commissioner, before you entertain a motion,
Motion was made.
well, before you resolve it, I was just present at a meeting of your clerks and the chief and the deputy, and the two clerks were in agreement. There was no motion made by either of the chief or the deputy chief to offset the decision made by the clerks. So I'm standing here with my mouth uncharacteristically open, that there's a matter before you that didn't seem to arise from that room.
All the matters are before us.
No, I understand you within a certain jurisdiction.
The chief and deputy just referred this matter to the board, the full board of commissioners, we reviewed as de novo, which is what we're doing now.
So this is the fifth bite.
Well, we're trying to get it correct.
So the motion was made, is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. One abstention, Commissioner Dent abstains. And so that signature is counted. That's the tally. The next one is, returning this.
There's nothing in the update regarding that type of issue, Commissioners. We deal with printed names, signatures on the misses, and when they only include the first.
But in this case, you want variations of names.
Well, that's for candidates.
Anthony, Tony.
That's for candidate. So Anatoly Eisenberg could run as Tony Eisenberg. Bill
So if a
Clinton-
signer signs his name Jimmy, or some variation of that, it won't be accepted, or Tony, Anthony.
If I sign something Michael Michelle and then I sign it Mike Michelle, would you accept it?
That's how you're supposed to sign in accordance with your registration record. That's what the inspector should be able to.
As Mr. Richmond would point out, if Mike signs a buff card as Mike, then he's Mike. Even if he prints his name Michael and he signs as Mike, that's perfectly okay.
They signed their name. Her name is Gaetana. She used Tana. I mean, I don't know too many women that like to be called Guy for short. Tana would probably be the way she'd go.
Let's
Move on.
Let's move on to the next one.
The next we did not agree on is, volume 786, page 12, line 1. This was ruled illegible, but beneath the signature is written in block letters Y. Chen. The objections are, on the spec, are illegible, forgery, not enrolled. There are two Y. Chens at that address, both of them Republicans. I believe the proper objection should have been no first name. Betty disagrees with me, so we ask you commissioners to rule on it.
Does anyone want to be heard on that?
The Y-Chens are indistinguishable. They could refer to either of the two Republican registrants or enrollees at that address, or another Y-Chen in the basement who never got around to registering. In any event, we cannot distinguish which Y-Chen, consequently it is illegible to us as to identify a particular voter.
Yeah, but if there's two Y-Chens registered there, they're both Republican, and we will
So
assume.
we don't know that it's one of them.
Well, is there another one that lives there?
Could be.
No, the answer is there one there that you know?
Not in your records,
Not in our
Commissioner.
records, so we have to go by what's in our records, and technically there are two of them. Both of them are Republicans, so we would assume that one of them is here.
And I would assume that a person with your name would be the Commissioner of Elections if I only had a M Michelle signed as a sheet of paper. It's a matter
But
of,
if it was
it's
at
a
my
matter of law.
address, if it was at my address, you would believe it would be me. If
But
it's,
you don't have somebody else at your address with your same.
how do you know?
Why don't we check the records of the board?
Go ahead. Yeah, check. But
Respect,
the idea is, what I'm just saying is that there are two names, Republican voters at that addressed. You can't say there's one that's a Democrat like we had the other day, these are both Republicans, and the name is there, it's Y, and actually, on this petition, they have it separated where you have a signature on top and you can hand print your name underneath.
yes,
That
and
was the old
both of them,
system.
both of the people in your records are Y check.
Do you have any evidence to proffer the board today that there's another White Chen at that address?
No, and it's beyond the ken of this board to receive it if I had it.
All right, there's been a motion made, is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Michelle, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? Okay, one oppose. Commissioner Den opposes. All right, so the motion carries, the signature is counted.
Can I hear the count of that vote, Commissioner? For the record?
One opposed, everyone else agreed.
Unopposed? I
One
thought-
opposed.
One opposed. And how many in favor?
Seven. What's the next one?
Volume 795, page 41, line 1. The candidate said that that is the signature of Sandra Chow, who lives at 1964 85th Street. It was ruled illegible as stated.
Is there anything written underneath?
Chow?
No. Chow, S-C-H-A-U.
I think this is, I don't have that. I have that. What do you have in support of that? Can I see what you're looking at? The objection was what?
The objection was illegible.
The signature's illegible.
And you might note that the addresses are different, Commissioner? And the first names are different?
All right, does the candidate have anything to add?
I would stipulate that that looked like a 5 to me instead of a 1 in the address, which is how I found the buff card.
On the petition?
Yeah, I thought it was 85th Street, that's how I found it.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion not to accept the signatures.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed or abstain? Motion carries. All right. As stated, right?
The next one is volume 795, page 42, line 1. And the clerk said it was not as stated. The objection was no first name. There was one voter only, I'm sorry, page 42, line 1. The clerks found there was only one S. Parisi at that address.
Can I see what you're looking at? Because I don't have.
Sebastian Parisi.
Oh, I see it. It's out of order. I have it. It's out of order. What was the objection?
It's a Republican.
No first name.
The objection is no first name.
This is 30. No, is he Republican?
Did any other person register at that same similar name?
Not with the first initial S.
Excuse me?
No, not with the first initial S. And I don't believe,
He's the only Parisi, there's only one Parisi in the household, it's Sebastian.
Looks like they're going to a printout of everyone at a particular address. Right? 70 page. All right, we'll hold on to this one, can we just move on to the next one, just? We're asking for a printout of everyone at that address.
The next one is volume 795, page 39, line 2. They found not registered as stated. That is the voter Tay Lee.
Well, do we have a registration for that person?
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
We do. What's the address?
Commissioners, if I may, the issue here is that
This one is different. This
What
one's
was it?
206.
the voter re-registered on the 24th of June.
Right, right.
So they have a prior registration for the address that's listed on the petition. With the timeline of it being clocked in versus the signature of the petition, I would state that they were probably between addresses at the time, and therefore the signature should be valid, because we're talking about 6 days after they clocked in a new registration, from the old address to the new.
They signed the registration on 6/30,
Yeah, and this was clocked in on the 24th, if I believe, the new one.
but when they signed the registration, which was signed June 8th, they have to sign the registration and put their address as it is on the day that they're signing the petition, correct? Right.
Yeah, I mean, the rules do state that, but I do know that in the past, if, people can be living in two places at the same
Right, but
time.
it has to be accurate as of the time of the signing of the petition.
You are correct, Commissioner.
Do you have any?
Yeah, we don't know when the person moved, we only know when they filed the registration form.
When they sign the petition.
Right, and this
Right.
registration this one is June 8th.
Is it the same assembly district?
My
Both
vote's
addresses,
June
are they
6th.
in the same assembly district?
They are.
They are.
Both addresses are in the same assembly district.
Do you want to be heard?
Election district as well.
With all due respect, Commissioners, I think it was well stated by one of your colleagues. The only address you have to go by is the one in your files.
Is that for you guys? For the motion?
Not satisfied.
All right, it's been made. Second, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? No in opposition. All right, the motion carries.
What was the motion for the public?
To accept this, the voter of, the vote of Tay Lee and the signature of Tay Lee, as they appear similar. All right, the next one is?
The next one is volume 786, page 9, line 3. This is
it page 3? Or page 9?
9, line 3.
What was the objection?
It was ruled as stated for not registered at address stated.
It's the wrong address, right? On the petition says 1466 85th Street, whereas the registration says 1469 84th Street.
That's correct. Commissioner, both addresses are in the same election district. Now, Section 8-302 of election law states that if you move within the same election district, you are not required to change your election district you're not required to change your registration prior to voting. In fact, you're given the same rights as everybody else. You would only have to change it when you went to the polls directly. You would not have to do it in advance.
Is this a valid address, 1466 85th Street? Because I don't see anyone else at that address on this petition.
Again, you could check to see if there's anybody registered at that,
What's the name of the registry?
1466 85th Street? 85th?
85th.
Brooklyn.
When was the last time you voted?
2008.
No, that's when he registered. Was that the last time you voted?
Voter history review.
He's active? No.
That's just activity.
It's the last page. It's 11408 is the last time, I believe.
decisions.
It's a different address. The same.
So signatures? They're in the same ED, but does that, the address that's signed in the petition,
They are allowed to
4668
vote on
Fifth
election
Street.
day. However, every voter, if they move, they have an obligation to report the new address. They will all get a new phone from the election. So if you move and if you live in the same election district, on election day, you're supposed to report to the inspectors, you'll be allowed to go to the poll site. Doesn't free the obligation, you're supposed to state the address of the people living in it, and we base it on our election. That's always been our policy. We have not changed voters registration, addresses, it's based on petition signatures.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion to not accept the signature.
Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. All right, the signatures shall not be counted. All right, can we go back to Sebastian Parisi? We did receive a printout of everyone at that address. The address being 70 Bay, 22nd Street, and there's a 2 after that, I don't know what that means. Maybe second floor. And there is a Sebastian Parisi at that address.
And there were no other first initial S's at that address.
And no other Parisis at that address. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the signature as valid.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? All right, the motion carries. Signature shall be counted. Is there another one?
I believe that completes the list, Commissioners.
Are you sure? I see something here for a
Stanislaw
Iwaniki and a
I'm sorry.
Sonora Shaw.
Sandra Shao,
Is that one? What about Sebastian?
Iwaniki is page 795, I'm sorry, volume 795, page 7, line 4. The objection is not registered.
The objection is not registered?
Was it?
Well,
What's the board's recommendation?
I'm sorry, sir?
What's the board's recommendation?
Not as stated.
Not as stated. Bay, 16th Street, apartment 2A.
I move to accept the signature as valid.
I second that.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? One opposition. All right, the motion carries. The signature counts.
And volume 795, page 41, line 1, Sandra Shao.
What was the page and line number? Say that again?
It's 795, page 41, line 1.
No, yeah, we did this one. Good. All right, we did this one. All right.
sorry, what was the ruling?
That was
previously ruled on.
As stated or not as stated?
Who's keeping tally of the,
I am, but I don't have that.
That was ruled as stated, Commissioners.
That was ruled not to accept.
Is anybody down there?
I believe there are 5 that were ruled valid.
there was 2 invalid, right? There was 2.
Iwaniki, page 7, line 4 of volume 795 was ruled valid. Sebastian Parisi, which is page 795, I'm sorry, volume 795, page 42, line 1, was ruled valid. Tay Lee, which is volume 795, page 39, line 2, was ruled valid. Y. Chen, which was 786, page 12, line 1, was ruled valid. And Gaetana Sorelli, I think, page 786, I'm sorry, volume 786, page 7, line 6 was ruled valid. Ruled invalid were Sandra Shao, or illegible, which was volume 795, page 41, line 1, and Yakov Kabinski, volume 786, page 9, line 3, which was not registered as stated, that was a different address.
Okay. You want to tally up those numbers?
Okay, just got it.
Yes. The numbers are, total numbers submitted for the candidate, 427. Total invalid signatures, 15. Total valid signatures, 412. Number of signatures required, 408.
Is there a motion to adopt the amended, is this considered the third amended clerk's report?
I guess it would be the third call, give you a report on the third call.
All right, is there a second? Second. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? One opposition. Motion carries.
and I would like very much to thank the Brooklyn staff. They have labored long and hard, and we very much appreciate their support.
Thank you for your hard work.
I assume.
Right now, don't shut it off.
Mr. Sadi is located at the head of the table.
This is a meeting of the Commissioners' Cover Sheet Review Committee on August 5th to review 4 amended cover sheets for opportunity of the ballot petitions, notices of which were sent out last Tuesday, so that the time period to submit has expired. Commissioners, in all 4 of the amended cover sheets for the opportunity of the ballot, the staff has reviewed them. They now have cured the respective defects in form matching the petitions.
So they're all the same issue?
Same issue before, different OTV petitions.
My double-sided.